All right, let's get right into it. You know, most of us spend years, maybe even decades, relying on birth control. We think of it as this foolproof shield. But the truth? A surprise pregnancy can happen a lot easier than you might think. So today, we're going to break down all the surprising and sometimes kind of weird ways you can still get pregnant even when you're sure you're protected.
And wow, this quote, it really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of the matter. While we're over here trying to plan our lives, our bodies are literally programmed with this incredibly powerful biological drive to reproduce. This idea, right here, it sets the stage for everything we're about to cover. Which of course brings us to the big question. We all see those numbers, right? 99% effective. But what does that actually mean in the real world? You know, with our messy, unpredictable lives? Well, let's find out. Okay, first up, let's talk about the times our own bodies decide to throw a massive curveball. These are the situations where your biology does something totally unexpected and your birth control method just can't keep up. A lot of new moms hear that breastfeeding is a natural form of birth control, and technically, it can be, but the rules are so strict. Your baby has to be under 6 months, you have to be breastfeeding exclusively, no formula, and your period can't have come back yet. But here is the real kicker, the one that gets people. You actually ovulate before you get that first period. That means there's this secret window of fertility that you get absolutely no warning about. It's a much bigger gamble than a lot of people think.
Okay, this next one is a real shocker for a lot of people. It's a huge assumption that if you've had trouble getting pregnant or even went through something like IVF, you don't have to worry about contraception ever again. But that is just not true.
In fact, get this, a 2023 review found that a staggering 20%, that's 1 in 5 people who had a baby after fertility treatments ended up getting pregnant naturally later on. Researchers think that pregnancy can sometimes kick the body into gear, maybe even helping with conditions like endometriosis that cause the infertility in the first place. Wild, right?
And now for what has to be the most mind-blowing scenario of all, superfetation. This is when your ovary releases another egg a few weeks after you're already pregnant, and that second egg gets fertilized. Yep, you heard me. It is actually possible to get pregnant while you are already pregnant. Now, before you panic, this is unbelievably astronomically rare. We're talking only about 10 known cases in all of medical history. It's more of a biological oddity than a real-world concern, but it's an incredible example of just how determined nature can be.
Okay, let's move on from the super rare stuff to something we've all dealt with. It's not just your body's strange quirks you have to worry about. Just getting a simple bug can totally mess with your birth control, especially if you're on the pill.
We've all heard the warning, right? Don't take antibiotics with birth control. Well, here's the reality check. That's mostly a myth. There are only a couple of really rare antibiotics for very specific conditions that are proven to interfere. The real enemy here? It's the sickness itself. Maybe you just feel awful and forget a pill, or, as we're about to see, your body doesn't even get a chance to use it.
Look, the logic here is pretty straightforward. If you take your pill and then throw up shortly after, or if you have a really bad case of diarrhea, well, your body just didn't have enough time to absorb those hormones. As far as your body is concerned, it's the exact same thing as if you just skipped your pill for the day.
Okay, this next section isn't about pointing fingers or making anyone feel bad. Not at all. It's about empowerment. Because a lot of birth control failures come down to these tiny, common mistakes. Things that are actually super easy to avoid once you know what to look for.
A vasectomy is an incredibly effective form of birth control. But it is not a light switch. It's not effective the moment you walk out of the clinic. There's this crucial waiting period to, well, clear the pipes. So the bottom line is simple. You absolutely have to use another form of birth control until a doctor runs a test and gives you the official all clear. No exceptions.
Condoms seem so simple, but tiny mistakes can make a huge difference. For instance, so many people don't realize that oil-based lubricants, we're talking petroleum jelly, coconut oil, can actually break down the latex and cause it to fail. Same goes for leaving it in a hot car or a freezing glove box. You have to remember it's a delicate medical device, not some indestructible candy wrapper. You gotta treat it with a little respect.
IUDs are amazing. They're one of the most effective methods we have. But, and there's always a but, they aren't infallible. It is so important to go back to the doctor about a month after you get it put in just to make sure it's in the right spot. And since some IUDs stop your period, you have to be tuned into other pregnancy symptoms. And this part is crucial. If you do get pregnant with an IUD in place, it carries higher risks, so you need to call a doctor right away.
So, we've gone through wild biology, getting sick, and just simple human error. What does it all boil down to? Honestly, it's this: knowledge. Knowledge is truly your best form of protection.
Let's just be real for a second. No birth control method is a 100% ironclad guarantee. But there's a huge difference between typical use, which accounts for all our human mistakes, and perfect use. Understanding all these little details, all these nuances we've talked about, that's what closes the gap. That's what empowers you to use your method as perfectly as possible.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. The whole point of this explainer isn't to scare you, it's to arm you with information, to make you aware. So the real question to leave you with is, now that you know all this, what, if anything, are you going to do differently?